Hi, Leanne. Welcome. Oh, so friends, here we are together. Kind of a nice, small, intimate group for Canada Day. So let's take our time and go to gallery view as we always do, and appreciate each other. I'm appreciating Andrea's fireworks right now. And hey, Leanne. And the blessing of being able to gather together. What a blessing this is. I'm just feeling my body just kind of ease. Just take a breath. Just feeling like we're among friends on this day, on this special day. And so friends, I thought that today I would gather together some of the pieces that we've been practicing the last couple of months in terms of wisdom. And we talked a couple months ago about this clear seeing, this capacity to see clearly with as little reactivity as we can, what's happening and how we can see patterns and help them to release that way, and then see what's wholesome and how to cultivate it. We've also talked about joy, quiet joy, quite a bit since I got really tuned into quiet joy this month, and the important role of it in the wisdom process, the process of being able to see clearly and cultivate peace in the heart. So I wanted to join these dots together a little bit tonight and understand that they're a part of an innate natural process that we can catalyze, that we can set conditions in place for. And so that was my plan for tonight. And we have such a nice small group. We might decide afterwards to have some, who knows, we might decide to have a little discussion if people are interested in that. Or we may just do what we have been doing, is just have the talk and then dedicate the merit. And so I'm going to lead a meditation that invites us to look at some of the conditions that are helpful to have in place to cultivate or support this innate movement, this innate sequence, this innate process of insight, of liberation, of wisdom. And so that's what I'll lead the meditation in, and I'll fold our refuges in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha into the meditation. And so just sensing again into the blessing of being here together. I don't know if it's because it's a smaller group tonight that I'm feeling a lot of gratitude in my heart and appreciation for each person. Just letting yourself feel whatever appreciation you have for the group. Let that soften the body and soften the heart. And as we reflect on this appreciation, we can also reflect on the impact this reflection has on the body, on the heart, on the mind, on the whole system. This is a really important part of cultivating wisdom, is to notice the impact of our reflections, of our mental actions, of our the way we direct our attention, to notice the impact then on the body and the system. Our body is the barometer, the wisdom barometer. Does this help to settle? Is this pleasant? Or does this lead into agitation? And so noticing this first reflection just on appreciation of the Sangha. Notice the impact on the system. And there won't be an impact in every reflection I invite you into tonight. So just notice which ones you have a response to and which ones seem neutral. In this one of appreciation, sensing in to see if there's any sense of settling, any sense of easing back, any sense of lightness in the heart of appreciating our friends here and of receiving the appreciation of our friends. So just let that resonate for a moment. See if there's any sense in the body of that. This refuge of Sangha. And then resting in or bringing in the reflection of the refuge in the teachings. Just reflecting on your relationship with the teachings, reflecting on which of the teachings really speak to you, and the sense of any gratitude or appreciation that rises for the teachings. Just see what happens if you turn to that reflection for a moment. What happens in the body? And then turning to the refuge of the Buddha, remembering that we have within us the capacity for peace, the capacity for wisdom. Just bringing that reflection in. Sometimes there can be a little settling, a little ease, maybe a little quiet joy, very subtle sense. The teachings, the Buddha is in your own heart, your capacity. And then settling in the attention into the body and the body sitting, and sense the support of the chair, the connection, feet on the floor, hips on the chair. Sensing this whole body sitting. And just sensing into this capacity for mindfulness. This capacity to be present here with your experience. What an amazing thing to be aware of. Just this simple capacity for mindfulness, which is such a support for us. Just sensing into any sense of appreciation, any sense of settling with this, simply being aware of this capacity for mindfulness. Sensing the breath. Rising in the chest and the belly. Expanding the sides. Just being curious about how the breath moves in the back, lifting the shoulders. This curiosity we can bring to this ebb and flow. Thoughts will call the attention, and that's another kind of ebb and flow. The thought, the mind, the attention will come back all by itself, ebbing and flowing. And we can rest back and receive with mindfulness the breath, ebbing and flowing the mind, ebbing and flowing. Just in the simple, quiet joy of being connected with our lives, our experience, intimate here and now. And then we can notice if there's any pleasantness in the system. Perhaps the system is calming down a little bit. Is there any pleasantness there? Or any pleasantness anywhere in the system right now? Just tuning into this pleasantness every so often and seeing what happens when you do. Is there any response in the body, in the mind, or the heart? So just continuing to rest in mindfulness of the experience of the breath and of the mind, body and the mind. Inviting ease. And every so often, just asking in, is there anything pleasant here? Any quiet joy? Pleasantness simply in the calming, in the being present. Any ease that is present. And then as you notice any pleasantness, noticing then what the impact is on the system of noticing that. And then returning to rest in this ebb and flow, this body and breath as the anchor. Oh, dear friends. Um, I just enjoy the view, actually, the gallery view. And I want to start off talking about view. Um, as um, the Buddha's understanding or the Buddha's teachings on this wisdom practice begin or be, have at the heart of them a view called wise view. And this view, this way we view our experience is called wise because it leads us to peace. And so I just wanted to take a little look at view in general, before we dive into wise view. Because when I thought about looking at view in general, it helped me to understand that I don't always see outside my view. Like the view I have is the view I have, and it's hard to see a different view. So I had some fun just with Canada Day today. So of course, this day is a wonderful day for us to celebrate. And it is Canada's, our nation is 153 years old today. So happy Canada Day, everybody. And we saw some t-shirt and flag, and we've got Andrea's fireworks there. So happy Canada Day. It's a beautiful day. We all, there's lovely sense of, for myself, pride and belonging and values. And then there's other ways we can look at this day. Other ways we can look. I was taking a look today on the internet, and there is a nation, the Heiltsuk Nation in BC, near Bella Bella, who is celebrating this year their 14,003rd birthday. So their nation is 14,000 years old. And then I thought, well, what about other birthdays? What about other ways of seeing this day? So we could say that the Earth is celebrating its 4.5 billionth birthday today. And the universe is celebrating its 13.5 billionth birthday today. So these are like just different lenses, different perspectives, different ways of seeing this day, seeing this experience, different views. And the Buddhist wise view sees this experience in a way that is different than how maybe the mainstream views our experience. So different. It has the particular and wise view. The particular view of wise view is that we can see clearly what's happening just in our experience, hold what's happening in our experience as it is. And as we do that, we can experience a release in the system and a release, a liberation of the mind and the heart into some sense of peace, even in the midst of difficult circumstances. And the mainstream view that I know we all know well is that we don't want to see clearly or rest into experience necessarily. We want to shift it around and change it around so that it suits us. For example, my inner reality right now, my inner experience may be one where I guess I have an intention. First of all, I have an intention or a wish for peace inside in my internal experience, and that's a great intention. But if I think that peace inside means I always have to feel good, I always have to manipulate my experience so that I'm feeling calm, then there's going to be a struggle. But if I have that, and we might call that unwise view, thinking that there has to be certain conditions lined up inside for peace. But if I have wise view, the wise view is I can hold whatever's here inside: agitation, calm, happiness, sadness, with this embrace of clear seeing, with this embrace of gentle holding it as it is. And in that, there can be a balance. There can be a kind of a peace, a kind of a release of struggle, and a balance with what is here. And that doesn't always mean, and then wise response can flow from that. That doesn't always mean I'm going to sit here and say, oh, this is like the great experience. It's really difficult, but I'm okay with it. It's like I'm at peace with it. It doesn't mean that. It means that if we can see it clearly, not with non-clinging, then wise response might be, yeah, I can be here with this. Or it might be, oh, I need to shift to something that's pleasant, but we do it intentionally with wisdom instead of with default. The way of the unwise view of feeling like all the ducks have to be in a row inside leaves me out in the cold if all the ducks aren't in a row inside. Here's another one I was feeling into. If I want to have a nourishing yard, a nourishing experience when I'm in my yard, and one of the parts of that is weeding the flower bed and mowing the lawn. And so those are great. That's great intentions and great actions. And I notice, and if I have the unwise view that if the weeds are all gone and the lawn is all mowed, then I can have peace in the yard. That's going to lead to that's going to be okay for a couple of days. But then when the lawn starts growing, the weeds start showing, I may not have the same access to the same peace if those conditions are different. And so there's a way of we can rest in with the changing conditions of our experience, the changing conditions, without having them to stay the same. Now, I was thinking that my neighbor might not have the same relaxed view as I do about my lawn being mowed. But I do. So there's another experience I was feeling into as well, that we may want the world to be free of racism or other injustice. And this is a wonderful intention. But if we don't see clearly what's here, if we don't see clearly that there is systemic racism, that there is systemic injustice, and can hold that with some equanimity, we won't be able to address what's here. And even I was on with some of my colleagues the other day, and we were talking about racism, and one of them said, just admitting, just saying there's systemic racism in the world. There's a kind of a relief in that, just naming it. And right now in the world, the whole world really is having this curtain of delusion kind of pulled back on racism in a new way that we haven't had although of course many people in the world have been aware of racism for generations, but many folks are having that curtain pulled back. And there can be a release, there can be a relief just in, oh yeah, this is how it is. And so this wise view is being able to see clearly what's here with as much equanimity as we can. Inner balance in the midst of what we might feel as ups and downs internally, in the process of ups and downs externally in the world as well. And this is an innate and natural process, but we can't think our way into it. If I want to say, oh yeah, it's all right, I want to just let go of clinging to things to being different and let go and be with what's here. I can't do it. We can't do it just by thinking our way in. And so what I find helpful about the Buddhist teaching is that we don't have to think our way in to this process of release in the mind. There are maps, there are maps which point the way, and maps, one of the things about these maps is that they point to a conditionality of experience so that we don't have to let go. We can set the conditions for letting go. and then let those conditions roll out. And so what we want to look at today is that innate process, and then what conditions we can set in place to support the letting go. And so we've been looking at various maps about this. And one map we looked at 2 weeks ago was the 7 factors of enlightenment, or the 7 factors of awakening. And this is a map to this release in the mind. And it's got this kind of natural innate, this natural progression. And we can also bring in each of these on their own. But the natural progression, the 7 factors, the first is mindfulness. And as we bring mindfulness in, we have the capacity then to be curious about our experience. And as we get curious about our experience, there's an energy that can rise because we're coming into contact with experience, and that contact with this present moment gives an energy, kind of an enlivening sense of presence. And right in there can be a joy just being present, quiet joy. And so we can set these conditions in place. Mindfulness as a condition, we can then consciously work with curiosity, consciously notice energy, and then let the joy, notice the quiet joy that come in just with being present in experience. And then from there, things unfold. There's, with quiet joy, this sense of being connected, there's a sense of calming in the body, calming in the system. And that calming can deepen into deeper calm and into equanimity. And an equanimous mind and heart is a mind and heart that can be with experience without reacting, with little reactivity. You can stand close to experience, pleasant experience and unpleasant experience. But we don't have to think ourselves into that state. We can set the conditions for it and let the conditions take us there. And an equanimous mind is a mind then that can release, that can let go. So there's another map that I want to take a look at tonight. And this is a map that we looked at on Saturday in the retreat that we had on Quiet Joy. And this is a map that begins in another place that we all know. We all know mindfulness, and we can all bring that into play. This next map begins with struggle and suffering and stress. Does anybody have suffering, struggle, or stress at any time? And so this is what I like. Yeah. This is what I like about these maps, is that they begin where we are. And so another question I want to ask then is, feel into whatever is struggling, suffering, stress, maybe that's you know, any example in your life or just in general, and feel into that, and then feel into whether you have any tools to meet it. There's 2 ways to meet suffering. One way of meeting suffering is meeting it with resistance and pushing it away or wishing it were different, resisting it in some way, and this can lead us into struggle and more suffering. Or we can meet it in a way that leads us onward to this capacity for release. And so when you think into the stress, the suffering in your life, do you have any tools? Think of a tool. I'm pretty sure everyone will have a tool. Any tool that helps you meet struggle, suffering, stress in a way which feels like we can say onward leading to that place of skillful relationship with it. And I often think back to before I knew the Dharma, when I actually felt like I didn't have any tools to meet suffering, to meet stress. So think now into what tools you have. Is mindfulness a tool you've got? Curiosity, interest, caring, kindness, nature? Is the capacity to see stress and know I need to turn to something nourishing a tool that you have. Sense into what tools you have to meet stress. And when you have a tool in your mind, just raise your hand so that I can see if everyone's got a sense of some practice that is supportive for you. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Could be a sense of being in Sangha, could be the refuges, just bringing the refuges in. So sense into the practice that you feel is supportive for you, and sense what it feels like to know that you have a practice like that. What's it like to know that you have a practice like that? What's that feel like? And just see if there's one word that describes how it feels to know that you have a practice. Oh, thank you, Andrea. She says, gives her courage. If everyone who is able or would wish to would put one word, put your word in the chat. And I'm just going to give you a minute to just do that. And as you do it, as people who wish to do it are doing it, just let yourself sense into the felt sense in your body of what it's like to know that you have a practice. I'm just going to give folks a minute to put some things in there, and then I'm going to read them out. And if you have a challenge, if there's a challenging experience, you can put that in there and I'll address it. But what is a one word that describes for you what it feels like to know that you have a practice? It might describe a little bit of maybe we could use the word confidence or faith or trust that you have in this practice. What does that confidence or faith or trust feel like? So I'm going to read out some of these words and we can have a shared sense of what this feels like for us. Comforting, gives me courage, peace, confidence, grounding, calm, confidence, peace, harmony, experience, grounding. So this is what it feels like to have this, some of the descriptions of what it feels like to know that we've got a practice to meet suffering. And so this is the second step in this map that starts out with suffering and then moves to confidence. That's the second link in this sequence. And so now I'm going to ask you a question about that may lead us into the third link. When you sense into those words, is there any little sense of, mm, any little sense of, I don't know quite what word to call it, but any sense of a little bit of uplift, a little bit of sense of quiet joy, a little bit of sense of quiet happiness in knowing, in this sense of confidence? Is there any flavor there? When you feel into confidence, is there any flavor of quiet joy, quiet appreciation, quiet gratitude? So sense into that and see what happens when you sense into that. So reflecting on our confidence, is there a little quiet gratitude, a little quiet joy, a little quiet something when you reflect on this confidence? This is kind of an experiment with us, but let's feel into that for a moment. And then see if there's one word that would describe any sense of what you feel when you feel into your confidence. And if there's a word, there's a couple people that could put a word into the chat about what it feels like to feel into your confidence. Is there a little quiet something there? A little subtle quiet something there? What is it? I'll just give folks a few seconds to sense that and drop a word in the chat box if you wish. So I've got some words here for what rises when we feel into our confidence. And so we've got definitely peace and stillness, supported, gladness, peaceful, trusting myself, and delight. And so the third step, so we've got suffering, and then we have the confidence and that kind of all the words that came around confidence, and then feeling into our confidence, these other words, these other states rise. And we've got one more here, peacefulness. And so these first three links in this process just rose naturally as we reflected into the state. So the first was suffering, then the second confidence, and then the third in the formal map is called quiet joy. And so this is just the innate process that if we pay attention to it, we can work with it. And we set the conditions for quiet joy. In this map, from suffering, confidence, and then quiet joy rises. And then I'm just going to talk through the rest of the map. But if we feel into each of the qualities, we may be able to sense that they move naturally from one to the other. So the third one is quiet joy. The fourth one is calm. So here is the same sequence as in the 7 factors of awakening: joy, quiet joy, and then calm. And then the next one is, wait a second, let me get this straight on this one here. Okay, quiet joy. And then if we pay attention to quiet joy in this map, quiet joy just gets deeper. So just pay attention to those qualities of peacefulness and stillness that we mentioned, and the quiet joy can just deepen into quiet joy, more quiet joy. And then this can deepen into calm naturally. And then calm, feel into calm for yourself and just sense, is there a little quiet happiness in feeling calm? That's calm conditions happiness, a little bit of happiness, a little quiet happiness. This quiet happiness again deepens calm. This is the sequence. Deepens calm, or we could say settles more into concentration. And then when we have concentration is when we can really, this kind of settledness, this kind of calmness, then we can see things clearly. And seeing things clearly is a condition for release in the mind and the heart. So I'm going to read the sutta, the Upanisa Sutta, that describes this innate natural process. This is the Buddha talking to Ananda and the Sangha. And the Buddha said, just as practitioners, when rain descends heavily upon some mountaintop, the water flows down along with the slope and fills the clefts, gullies, and creeks. These being filled up, fill up the pools. These being filled up, fill up the ponds. These being filled up, fill up the streams. These being filled up, fill up the rivers. And the rivers being filled up, fill up the great ocean. In the same way, practitioners, suffering is the supporting condition for confidence. Confidence is the supporting condition for quiet joy. Quiet joy is the supporting condition for deeper quiet joy. Deeper quiet joy is the supporting condition for calmness. Calmness is the supporting condition for happiness. Happiness is the supporting condition for deeper calm or concentration. And concentration is the supporting condition for seeing things clearly. And seeing things clearly is the supporting condition for release in the mind and the heart. So I know that there's folks on this call who are here on Saturday for the retreat. And I'm hoping that just hearing this again just helps to deepen it. I know I need to hear these things many times in order to really understand. And every time I hear it, it deepens in me. And so this sutta, this progression, I'm looking at Liz in the forest. One of the ways, one of the places that we can feel this most clearly, and I talk about this a lot, we can feel this, sometimes it can, well, the 12 links, what? Well, just feel into your experience in nature. And that is a time when this natural process is catalyzed. We come into nature, say we got we're having a hard time. I often think of a woman I interviewed for a film I did, and she said to me, I would never have been able to make it if it hadn't been for nature, for being able to walk out in nature. And so when we have a difficult time, we know that we all do this. We go to nature, or we go to nature all wound up, and the beauty, the joy of nature can lift us. And then the next thing that happens is we feel calming. And as we're there, we can unwind. The mind unwinds on its own, right? There's nothing we need to do. What the Buddha wants us to know is that this process doesn't have to happen only when we're in nature. We can understand the process and understand that we can catalyze it in our own inner nature. And the conditions in this map for putting into place are watching suffering. Can we have confidence and look for the quiet joy and let it unfold from there? Joy is the pivotal place, and then the maps are similar following that. In the 7 factors of awakening, it's mindfulness, curiosity, energy, joy, calm, concentration, equanimity. In the Upanisa Sutta, it's suffering, confidence, joy, more joy, calm, more joy, concentration, and clear seeing, and equanimity and letting go. And so we can begin to work with this process. And I was in the other day, maybe I shared this in a talk previously, but I was having a difficult time a few weeks ago, and I just remember this so clearly. I went to the back alley and I was walking up and down because I was really upset. And the way I was in suffering, and the way I worked with it was I just dropped the question in, is there any quiet joy here? And I noticed the sunlight on my skin, and my whole system just calmed down. And then I could see clearly what was happening, and something unwound. So we don't have to work hard to let go and unwind. If we can bring this quiet joy in, look for it, and let the rest of it unfold. Look for the pleasantness. And on the International Teachers Conference today, I was in a session that was talking about liberation and talking about the nourishment, the importance of looking for the nourishment in our system as a way of helping support the system. We often think that we have to work hard at concentration, work hard to let go. I want to invite us to a different way. The teachings invite us to a different way. And so as we sense into this liberation, really, this sequence of liberation, over time we can touch it bit by bit, touch it little by little, touch it in moments, notice it. The more we notice it and work with it intentionally, the more it will grow in us. And one of the ways we notice if it's growing is over time, do we notice in our life, is there a little bit more ease in general? Is there a little bit more kindness in general? It's not about having a big explosion of fireworks that I'm seeing over Andrea's shoulder. Suddenly, I got it, I'm wise. Oh, everything makes sense now. It's like, yeah. It's more like a gradual noticing over time. Oh, yeah, there's some less reactivity. As we touch this process more consciously over and over, well, yeah, I'm noticing. I'm not responding, not reacting the same way I used to in that situation. Oh, I'm a little more gentle with myself. Oh, I recover from stressful things a little bit more easily. Oh, I know wisdom when I see it. I know peace when I see it. So these gradual differences in our lives that we can notice over time. And so I guess my question for us is, how can you set the conditions for this innate process to unfold? What supports quiet joy for you? Is it sensing into the confidence of meeting suffering? Is it bringing mindfulness in and noticing curiosity and interest? Is it sensing into, this is something that can bring joy for me. This is not on the maps that we've talked about tonight, but just having time, spacious time, supports a sense of quiet joy for me. If I'm doing my to-do list, my shopping list, and I'm on a deadline and I've got to get on, there's no joy. I take the same shopping list and go with tons of time, and there's a joy in there. That is a taste of the liberated mind. We actually can begin to notice that this sequence unfolds in our system more than we think. And so maybe I'll just stop there, and maybe there's some reflections on that. And if not, that's okay. I'll just maybe I find it inspiring to read that Upanisa Sutta. So I could read that again, but maybe there's some questions, comments, confusions, experience of your own with confidence, with any of the conditioning factors we've talked about tonight. And this wise view, this view that we can meet suffering in this way, in a way that can lead us to a peace. We don't have to rearrange what's happening. We have a practice for meeting it in this wise, onward leading way. Let's dedicate the merit of our practice tonight. May the merit of our practice support our own hearts. May it ripple out and be a cause and a condition for the liberation of all beings. Thank you, everyone. And I think we've got a